time for another mind-numbing video with my mind-numbing voice. So, I did YouTube searches. I wanted to install a generator inlet, which I already have outside of my house, but I also wanted one inside of my home. The reason being, I have a generator for the house, but now I have a battery backup / storage system, which I got last year with the tax credit, which is now over. Anyway, it's designed to put out 240 volts. It's a Delta Pro 3. And while I'm not going to argue the apples to oranges of saying, you got 4,000 watts of power in this battery unit, which will last your house like, 4 hours, where, for the same price, you can get a portable generator that will last your house constantly, as long as you feed it gas, propane, all that stuff. Anyway, you get the idea. You run your gas generator, you use your gas generator to charge your battery backup system, and then you can turn your gas generator off for a period of time, let it cool down, refuel it, or just run it at nighttime without any noise whatsoever because you have the battery system. Or if the power just goes out, you could plug in your house battery system, power the house, and if you think it's going to be an outage for a while, then you can dig out the gas generator, fight to get it started, or all that good stuff, depending on what type of person you are and how often you do your maintenance. Because usually when you go to use something when you need it, it doesn't work. Snow blowers, generators, chainsaws, you get the idea. So, I'm a visual person, so for the visually people out there, I'm going to give you a basic overview. I'm not an electrician, not electrician advice, nor do you care if you're probably doing it on YouTube. But anyway, NEC, National Electric Codes, have codes. Most of these codes are accepted by places, ordinances, municipalities, all that good stuff, and that's all they do. Some places make them more stringent. None of them can make them more lenient unless you get a variance or something like that for a specific reason. But anyway, this isn't to argue codes and violations in countries and all that. It's just to give an overview here in the United States of how it works. So, we got over here with the tweezers, utility power. Then you have your house, right? We'll have the generator. But basically, on utility power, you're going to have two lines coming into your home. 120 volts here, 120 volts here, the neutral's in the middle, a measure here to here, you get 240 volts, measure your panel, here to here, 240 volts. You measure from one of those phases, as they're called, two-phase system, A and B, phases to ground, 120 volts, this phase to ground, 120 volts. That's what you should have, if your system's right, but we're not even going into that. Ground is the ground. Outside your house, you have a grounding rod to put electricity voltage into the ground so that it goes back through the ground to the source, right? That's if there is a fault. Let's say your hotline is putting power out to something and the neutral gets loose and slams into something, and therefore that current can't get back to the source. It can go through the ground. It goes through the ground to here, back to earth, back to the utility company. We're not going to argue about all that hypothesis, just a generalization, right? So, bonds meaning where a ground wire and a neutral wire are physically connected together, should always occur in your main service panel. If you have an outside disconnect, that'll be outside your house. If you have the standard house, usually you're going to have a bus bar. You might have two, one with just grounds, one with just neutrals, if you have a newer system. If you have an older house like me, 1928, and the system's got a sticker from 1983 and all that good stuff, more than likely you're going to have a bar in there, and you're going to have white wires and bare copper wires, and that's your ground bus bar. And there's going to be a little plug connecting the neutral as it comes in up here to the panel, and then that neutral is going to connect to the bar, and they're all bonded or connected together in your panel. So, with that said, the generator. Generator-wise, I'm going to show you how I connected my system, but the generator, purple line here is basically the neutral going to the bar. Ground wire goes to the bar. Just like it does in your standard house system, they're all interconnected together. However, since the utility is not providing power, it's broken because you have an interlock switch that you turn the interlock off, cutting your panel, so any power coming into the panel is no longer fed back out to kill anybody working on the electrical lines. So you flip the breaker off and these lines end up being dead. But for reference of what I did here, the neutral wire that comes in is still connected, and the ground wire is still going to the ground bar outside of your house. So in a ground fault, the path of least resistance here to the ground isn't going back to utility. Path of least resistance for current to flow on the ground would go back to your generator, if that makes sense to you. Now, understanding your generator. This, if you can read it depending how it comes out. From a safety standpoint, switching the neutral can eliminate ground faults. That's the purpose of switching a neutral, so you don't have ground faults, GFCI breakers, things like that. If the neutral is bonded, which means connected, at both the generator and the load, which normally you see that they are connected at the load side, a ground fault on the load side can create a neutral to ground fault at the generator. This can cause the generator frame to be energized, and it can kill you, shock you, all that stuff. However, what's key to notice is that it says if it's grounded at both the generator and the load. Okay, both. In the example I just showed you, it's not connected at both. Okay, it's only connected here because the generator is going to be a floating neutral. Which brings us to the next slide, which is in a slide. Or we can go out and look at the generator. First thing you have to understand is what your generator is, right? What is your generator? Is it floating or bonded? Most of the little portable, I said porn, I did. Most of the portable units are bonded, meaning that the ground and neutral are connected in the units. However, big units like those Generac units that sit outside that are 4 feet wide and all that, they're generally floating because they're going to be designed for your home. Where portable ones are designed to be portable, and most people aren't running their home off them, but you could, right? So here's a breakdown of how I did my system. There's a lot of specifications. I can't go into all electrical codes and all that things with you, but you have to understand this. What I put is, sorry, dog barking, be back. Sorry, I got distracted by the Amazon man. But you know what they say in the Matrix? Have a cookie. By the time you finish, I promise you'll feel much better. If I have any fingers left. Alright, back to work. Alright, we're back from that pause from the cause. So, overall the system. My outside inlet, I have basically, I'll show you, the receptacle stubbing out of the wall, which means that I could have run indoor cable, but I put it in liquid tight conduit. You do your wiring your way, I'll do my wiring my way. So outside we have what's called THWN wire in 8 gauge. Even though it's a 30 amp circuit, only requires 10 gauge. I oversized the wires. That's my choice. You can oversize things, but you have to meet minimum specifications, right? On the indoor inlet, we have, instead of THWN wire, we have what's called Romex or sheath cable wire or non-metallic cable. And we have 10-3, which is designed for 30 amps. And then both of those receptacles now run to a transfer switch. The way we have it geared up here is the bond in the main panel up here is the ground and neutral, as it always is. It's going to come down to the transfer switch, and the transfer switch has its own ground bar. So we have one of those filled up with the ground going right back to the service panel, and then out of the other two we have one going up here to this receptacle, another one going to this receptacle, and the transfer switch itself is got a bond to itself, much like your main electrical panel has a bond to itself. The neutrals from both of these are coming in and spliced together and going right back up, which means that it is a bonded system, right? Everything is bonded still at the main panel. Like we said, you have the interlock breaker, where basically power depending where the transfer switch is. It can only be either here or there, so it can't be connected to both. But when you close the switch, it either connects this one or this one to here, which is your mains coming in, which powers your panel. Power goes out to your house, goes to your circuits, all that good stuff. If there's a ground fault, right, that means there's a problem with the neutral, and all that current's going to come back on the ground wire, which is going to come back to the panel. The panel's going to say with the little electrons, hey, how can we get back home to the source? Okay, I see a path in the neutral. But it's not going to take the neutral from here back out to utility power, because utility is not the source. It's going to go down this neutral, and it's going to split off there and decide, here's the source, or here's the source. With that said, power that's sitting here is still, in theory, on this neutral or this neutral, regardless of where the switch is. But that's okay, because you still don't have hot power coming in, and the ground's just a separate path for it to come back to. Okay, that's where we're at there. So what's mostly important is that you know whether your generator is a floating neutral or a bonded neutral. All right. Don't worry, this is boring stuff, but we're going to get to the visual. Just understand, NEC codes, if you do a system this way, and you know that your generator is either bonded or floating, or in this case, hopefully floating, right? The National Electric Code requires you to put a sticker or a label on the actual inlet itself, so that whoever's plugging into that inlet knows, right, that this system is for a non-separately derived floating neutral system only. All right, non-separately means not bonded to its frame. So basically they're telling you whatever generator you plug in there, it's not a separate system, it's a system, right? It's not separate because it's connected to that house, ground, and neutral. So important that you put a sticker on there, because somebody gets a standard regular little portable generator that is bonded, where the neutral and the ground are physically connected in the generator, then you can have a problem, because you're going to have that bond existing here, and you're going to have that bond existing in the generator, which is what you don't want. You don't want them fighting for where they're going back to, the electrons, that is. Anyway, let's go look at some stuff. Okay, we've made it to the garage, past the snow blower, because we had 3 feet of snow the other day, and propane's got to get refilled, and kayaks are waiting, and planes are waiting, and motorcycles are waiting, and e-bikes. But anyway, this is about the generator. So my Champion generator has a sticker on it, warning, floating neutral. Because even though it's a portable generator, you know, not very portable because it's like 200 pounds, you can swap the neutral in there to make it either grounded, ground to neutral, or you can make it a floating neutral system designed for the house, which is how we have it sitting generally. You can knock all these generators you want. I've seen lots of videos, but I like the Champion, and I'll show you why. When you want to flop between a floating neutral or a bonded, that's your ground. This is your neutral wire. Right now, it's a floating neutral because this is just floating. But if you put these together, then you have bonded it, right? So if I just want to use the generator out in the field or something, I just put this on here and I bond it. No big deal. If I want it for the house, where it's kind of sitting now, I just leave that off where it's unbonded. And that's why I like the Champion generator, for that ease. You don't have to open anything back. You don't have to flop any yada yada things. It's just one screw off, one screw on. It's either bonded or it's floating. Let's go look at the outside switch. Creative Safety Supply. That sticker about for floating neutral, it's not on here because I peeled it off the other day. New ones are on order. Should come today. Anyway, so instead of stubbing out from the wall, I wanted the box a little higher up, which is why we're using this liquid tight conduit in the box. And then we have those THN wires, THWN wires inside of conduit, which is allowed. Non-metallic cable, not allowed in conduit. THHN, THWN is allowed in conduit. Just saying, staying with the electrical code. And that's the reason why we have the conduit in the first place, is because we could have just mounted this outside of the house and just ran those wires in, what they call a stub out, and connected it, but I did it this way. I did it the way I want to do it. You do it the way you want to do it. It's the code, and where I'm located, this duct seal, it is allowed to keep conduit and moisture and out and electrical things where I'm located. It's been about 1 minute and I'm still cold from being outside. Alright, our inside battery storage unit, Delta Pro 3, designed as a floating neutral system. They have software, something inside. I believe it closes a relay and bonds that connection, but generally it's a floating neutral battery storage system, or battery generator, or whatever you want to call it, right? It has a 240 volt outlet with a L1430R, because this is the receptacle and this end has the prongs. And on the other end over here, obviously the outside plug is a L1430P because it has the prongs, and this is the R because it's the receptacle. So if you're looking up plugs or whatever, just remember this is an L14 where the prongs go in. This end here, the female end, that's the receptacle, and the other end here, where the prongs are, that is the P, the prong. Just saying, show and tell. Sorry for the noise, because we're mining Bitcoin. Anyway, so here's the deal. The outside generator now comes down through this conduit into the box. We have just NM cable, non-metallic cable, 10.3, designed for indoor use. Outdoor boxes can obviously be used indoor. Indoor boxes cannot be used outdoor. So these are outdoor rated boxes. Up in the panel, people, oh, you gotta have an interlock. Okay, here's the interlock. Interlock just makes it so I have to kill the house power in order to turn the generator power on. Turning the generator power on closes the lead between the main panel, which is bonded, ground and neutrals are connected, to here, inside of the transfer switch, which has all the labels, right? So handles off, the handles up, it's the inside generator, that line. Handles down, outside generator, this line. Okay, very simple. Here, inside the transfer switch, if I can show you that, depending how much you can see. Like I said in my diagram, the neutrals and grounds from the outside and the indoor all come into here, come into that little ground bar in the back there. And hold on, I'll give you some more light. I bought this stupid light at Home Depot, but it's kind of cool if you're a child. Coast on. Look at that. Coast medium. Coast low. That's a little better. You could also do coast green, coast red, coast low. How's that for stupid? Anyway, so interlock, main power, middle lugs, right? Switches off, this connector, not touching nothing, not going anywhere, right? Right now, power coming in, there is none because that breaker's off. There's no load coming in because there's no generators connected. Don't be sticking your fingers in there if you got things plugged in. So these middle ones, red and black, they obviously go up to the circuit breaker, red and black, 120, 120, put them together, 240. The bus bar in the bottom here, we have the box itself, which is grounded. We have the outside generator, the inside generator ground, and then we have the ground from here, the little bare copper wire in the back there, goes up to the panel. Okay, so those are our grounds. This box itself is bonded to the panel, so you don't see a separate little ground screw or something, because there's a bonding plug in there that connects that whole thing to the box. So like I said, all of the these neutrals, they're all spliced together. They run up to the neutral bar, the grounds, they go up to the bar. It is a separately derived system where the only bond that's occurring is up in the main panel. And it's pretty much that simple. Switches down, it sends power from one of these receptacles up to the breaker, or switches up and sends it to the other, to the breaker. And yeah, that's the overview. So this, if I could get it down, that's how I design my system. So obviously they have to be on boards and mounted and all that good stuff. And I went with the fancy pants ones where it's plugged in. It tells me it has power there. And that's obviously the L1430 30 amp receptacle. And be mindful that the purpose of having receptacles with these plugs or prongs inside is kind of simple, right? These are not energized, because if I'm running on the outside generator, depending where the switch is, there is no connection sending power from here back to the prongs. However, obviously these neutrals and grounds, they still could be carrying current, just like anything in the whole house, the whole system. Just like the outlet there, all those grounds and neutrals and everything coming to the house and all the wire are still going back, and it's still connected to the panel up there to the ground and neutral bus bars. So anyway, that is how I installed my indoor, indoor generator inlets with a manual transfer switch, so that I can run my indoor generator or my outdoor generator. And again, like I said, the Delta Pro 3 is 4,000 watts. That outside generator, 7,000 watts. So even on AC power, once the outside generator is plugged in and I'm running off the house, I can obviously plug into the house itself and keep the battery back up, charged up and plugged. And then there's solar inlets and other inlets and all that nonsense. So couldn't find anything on YouTube about dual generator inlets, yada yada, the way I searched. So just giving you a visual representation of how I got things done. I know people might bitch and moan because you have nothing better to do. Oh, there's a water pipe above the electrical and stuff like that, but there's shutoffs for the water pipe. There is no specified distance in the NEC about how far the pipes can be from there. Duct seal is allowed as a watertight connection anyway if I had a pinhole leak or something going on there. Other people, oh, the shark bites are leaking already. They're not leaking already. I clean my shark baits like really well and stuff like that. So I mean, that's totally dry. And like I said, this ball valve can be on or off, and that'll obviously cut water from here, and then water can come up here. And listen, that's the main water pipe for the house. It's been there since, I don't know, 1928 or whenever they put the house on, and they approved obviously the panel right next to this main water pipe, obviously with the panel grounded and lugged, you know, to both sides of the water meter. You know, one ground connection going there, one ground connection there, so whatever. I'm not code enforcement. I just do things the way they're supposed to be done, to the best of my knowledge and ability. Alright, thanks for the boring video.